Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura DeRusso from Lemoyne College in Syracuse, New York. So today I'll be talking to you about my perspective, which is from a liberal arts college. So just briefly, first I'd like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to present today and the APS. I think it's fantastic that APS has professional development symposia at every one of their conferences that they have. I've certainly benefited from them and enjoyed them as I've developed through my career. So it's an honor to be able to contribute a little bit today. So I'll be telling you about my lens, basically, which is a Jesuit small liberal arts college. That's where I work. And on the left is our newly rolled out strategic plan. The reason I have that there is that both the mission and the strategic plan are really important when you're looking at job announcements and considering a job, and it's important that you include those in your application and how you can fit into both the mission and the strategic plan. And I'll talk about that later. So I'll be talking about SLAC, or a small liberal arts college. That's our unfortunate acronym, or maybe it's a good acronym, I'm not sure, but that's what you'll see throughout the presentation. So at most small liberal arts colleges, scholars are considered from the teacher-scholar model, and Carissa also talked about this as well at her institution. So what that generally means is that teaching is considered essentially the forefront of what we do. So that's the primary thing that we're doing. So whenever we talk about scholarship at my institution, it's vitally important that we talk about how undergraduates are involved in that process and how undergraduates can be part of the research endeavor. So at the same time, it's important that we maintain our research program and maintain publications. But it's also essential that we can show how this is part of a teaching model and how it can help in the classroom as well and help students down the road. So our classroom teaching load at my institution is what's considered a 3-3 course load. So this is something that's really important because it's defined differently at many different institutions. What a 3-3 course load means at my particular institution means that we teach 3 courses in the fall and 3 courses in the spring. Now what a course is defined as at Lemoyne College is 1 course is a lecture-based course, or it could also be a laboratory course. And so oftentimes somebody will teach 1 lecture, which meets 3 hours a week, and 2 laboratories. So they're having what's called 9 contact hours throughout each week and throughout the semester. So if your research productivity is lower than expected, then you will actually be assigned an additional lecture course, which would be a 4-3 or a 3-4 teaching load. And teaching evaluations are super important to both tenure and promotion. So at a small liberal arts college, service is a huge part of what we do. It really holds the whole community together, so it needs to be something that you recognize and are willing to contribute to. So there's a high expectation of service. So everybody is expected to pull their fair weight, and people wear multiple hats. So this can be a really good thing once you find out who those people are and how they can help you. It can be a little frustrating when you first come to a new institution, especially a smaller place. Everything might not be on the website, all the policies might not be clearly stated on certain websites, but you have to know to call Katie in the registrar's office and she'll get everything you need. So once you know to call Katie, it's fine, but until you know that, it can be a little bit of a frustrating process. So that's part of learning the culture of any new place. And so part of the service expectations are also that you can have a voice and you can be heard at your institution. So you can be really involved in changing the faculty handbook, changing policies and bylaws, but weigh that, right? Weigh that as a cost-benefit analysis because you might get really invested in something and it can really be a time sink. So you want to choose your service obligations wisely. And scholarship, even though we are a small liberal arts college, scholarship is absolutely important to tenure and promotion. So we need publications, presentations, and abstracts every year that are expected. And undergraduates have to be part of this process. So for us, it's really important to have undergraduates as co-authors on publications. And grants are only required if you need them for your research. So if you have a really expensive reagent or a mouse model that you want to use that costs a lot of money, then you might need a grant, but it's not required for tenure or promotion. So if this is the type of position that you're interested, how do you make the shortlist for this type of position? So you have to have teaching experience. And what this means, this is more than TAing an anatomy lab in graduate school. This is really having your own lecture-based course. So if you're interested in this type of position, if you have the opportunity in graduate school or as a postdoc to have your own lecture-based course, really take it. If this is something that you want to do. If you don't have that opportunity, see if you can give guest lectures, because that can also show that you've managed a classroom in a lecture style. Recent publications are absolutely required as well. And it's important that your research is feasible to do at the particular institution that you're applying to. So if you are unsure, call the search committee chair. Ask them, do you have animal facilities? Do you have this special type of hood that I need? Call and ask them. It shows that you've done your homework and that you're wanting to make sure that you're a good fit for the institution. You also need evidence of mentoring students. So most graduate students and postdocs have mentored other students, but document it and tell us about it in your application. Having interest in academic advising in the application and talking about it is very helpful, because it is something that we have to do. If you saw the ad that Joseph showed earlier, we list it specifically in our job application, so talk about it as well. And know the mission statement, know the strategic plan, and talk about it in your cover letter and talk about how you fit into that mission. Determine for the particular job if external funding is important, and if so, talk about it in your research plan, in your application, and talk about how it can be feasible. Talk about how you can include undergraduates in that process. So there's a fine line between talking about how you want to get external funding at a small liberal arts college and talking about your 10-year plan and how you want to BPI in a program project grant in 10 years. It's talk about how it fits at the small liberal arts college. Do not cut and paste from an application to an R1. Really talk about how it can fit specifically into the small liberal arts college that you're applying to. And really try to understand the institutional culture. This is sometimes hard to do from a website. Not everything is there, so try to talk to colleagues if you know anybody who's at the same institution that you're applying to, or even a comparable institution. So I work at a Jesuit institution, and sometimes really strong applicants will come through and they'll say, well, I worked at this particular Jesuit institution, or I got feedback from this other institution. So it can always help if you have more background on what the particular culture is. And in your application, talk about how you value interactions with undergraduates and these one-on-one interactions. So students that choose a small liberal arts college and their parents that help them choose that institution are expecting small class sizes, and they are expecting one-on-one interactions with faculty. So it's important that you talk about that and your interests, if you are interested in that, in your application. It really is important to stand out. And if you have attended a small liberal arts college, it can only help. I personally didn't. But if you did attend a small liberal arts college, this is the time to mention it, because what it shows the committee is that you understand the culture. So certainly point it out if you did in fact attend one. So tips for the job once you get the job. First of all, service, because it's such a large contribution of what you do. Really guard your time, talk to colleagues, find out which committees are going to be more time consuming, which ones are less time consuming. And then I recommend to junior faculty in our department to every summer write down all the service obligations that you're doing. This includes both official and unofficial service that you're doing. And it's okay to call a committee chair up and say, you know what, I have some new obligations, so I'm going to have to say no to continuing on this particular committee. Reevaluate and figure out how much you're doing every year, and it might be too much. So try to choose committees that you're passionate about, because they are a huge time sink. So it's really important that it can be something that you're motivated about and you want to change something at your institution or lead a group of people to do some new things. So, And I certainly recommend maintaining society service. The APS is fantastic for networking, and it's a great way to stay involved with other physiologists. Because if you're at a small liberal arts college, you are likely the only physiologist there, right? There's going to be a plant biologist, a geneticist, a physiologist. You're the lone physiologist. So try to maintain a way to keep in touch with other colleagues. So a little more about service. Try to see, the positive in service. It can really help you with leadership positions down the road. So try to see what you're learning. Some committees, and sometimes what you learn is, I don't need to work with that person ever again on a committee. But oftentimes you recognize, you have really fantastic colleagues across campus in religious studies and history and philosophy. And they can really help you for lots of things. And some committees may even prepare you for future appointments for chairing a department down the road or running a program. So, and value the relationships that you form with service. So I often feel like with service, it starts out, this is a common analogy, I think, just as herding cats, right, with certain service, or it seems like nobody can make a decision, so instead a subcommittee or a working group was formed, and now all of a sudden you're in charge of that working group. You have to, so it feels like herding cats, and then oftentimes it can turn into a little more than that, where you're having a somewhat intense dialogue, I would say, or discussion with other faculty. But I really find it interesting because at least at my institution, service is a great way to meet other faculty, which is really important for tenure and promotion, because it's also a way where other people across the college get to know who you are, and they get to learn about your work that way. And I just find it interesting that at the end of the day, this is really how it seems like everybody thinks about service when we're at happy hour or something talking about a committee we were on, even though we had a strong dialogue, a strong discussion. Earlier in the year, everybody's all of a sudden talking about how great it was and wonderful to work together. So it's always been intriguing to me, just the service, how it plays out, at least at my institution. So for scholarship at a small liberal arts college, the summers are really, that's where you get your experiments done, that's where you do the data collection. So because of that, you want to try to make time for writing during the semester, because it is harder to run full-length experiments. I have done it a few times, but summers are certainly better for data collection with the teaching demands. So during the semester, you want to try to really allocate time to writing. And then I also recommend trying to find a research support group. So this isn't a research group where you're hashing out ideas for experiments. That's something you would really do with people in your discipline. But a research support group is really a fantastic way to talk about, issues with mentoring or leading a team or leadership questions where you can, talk with people about this. So I recently joined a research support group across campus with somebody from foreign languages, somebody from psychology and math. And it's been really fantastic, and I almost immediately started a similar group just within my own department with junior faculty, because I found it was so helpful as a way to talk about things and issues on campus and ways to find solutions. So tips for teaching, it's really important to learn the culture. So if you're wanting to have all kinds of new technology and tools in your classroom, that's fabulous, but check to see if that's part of the culture. And if it is or isn't, just find a diplomatic way to start bringing that into the classroom. It doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You just want to find out exactly, what's been going on for a while and how you can think outside of the box. And then if you can, attend pedagogy workshops, do mid-semester feedback, things like that. And during the semester at a small liberal arts college, classroom teaching takes priority. That is what you are primarily judged upon at promotion and tenure. You still need publications, but this is what, as Joseph mentioned, you will not get tenure if you're not getting good teaching evaluations. So it's really important that it takes priority. And it also helps teaching in the laboratory. Mentoring students is also considered teaching. And so for me, it really helps to always make sure I have a student and make sure we have weekly meetings, because that makes me accountable as well to make sure that I can maintain my research while it's also a part of teaching throughout the semester. And overall, I would say it's important to maintain relationships with scientists at other institutions that are in your field. And of course, that's for writing papers and grants and things like that. But also reach out to faculty at your own institution. So often people, at least at my institution in religious studies, and history, we have some of the leaders in their disciplines. So they're, they are very well known. They know how to balance scholarship and teaching and service. They're also often willing to read proposals and can be very helpful. And also at a small liberal arts college, you have a direct line to the administration. So I interact with my dean and provost at least on a monthly basis, but often more than that. And that's important, I think, to have a good relationship with them because, of course, they are involved with tenure and promotion decisions, but they're also involved in funding decisions and resource allocation. So invite them to your lab. Make sure they know exactly what you do and they know what the students are doing in your laboratory, because that can be, it can only help you in the long term. So thank you so much for your attention, and I think we'll do questions with the panel later. Okay, thank you.